Welcome back to Restless. My name is Father Joseph Gill, and my two co-hosts are both on their cell phone, like typical millennials.
I'm looking at notes.
Oh, I see.
I'm
Okay.
texting with a friend.
Yeah. Like if you play chess against yourself, would you win and lose? I guess.
Yeah,
would.
you would.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Deep shower thoughts for you.
Right.
Diane says she never has shower thoughts. She just washes her hair.
I focus on scrubbing.
Because I don't have any hair, I got to do something.
It's growing back.
It is, yeah. No, it's true.
Is the plan
Yeah.
to go to the original length?
No.
No, you're just going to keep it roughly.
Yeah, I
this
keep
length.
shaving it every couple of weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
So for those of you who have seen me on the Restless website, I don't have hair anymore. That was an old photograph.
Well, you do have hair now.
It's like a peach fuzz.
It's grown back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's problematic.
I think this is good. When it was completely shaved, that wasn't good.
No.
No,
The
this-
Andrew
this-
Tate look was not working for
This
me.
is good.
Okay.
This is appropriate. So I'm supportive.
Thank you. It's about a quarter, maybe like a half a centimeter.
Yeah, it's like a 2.
So, yeah, it
Oh,
is a
how
two.
fast
It is.
does
It is a
grow.
2, yeah.
This was shaved like 10 days ago.
So pretty fast.
Pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to stop eating my Wheaties. My hair's going crazy.
Wheaties are terrible.
Wheaties are not bad. They're just bland.
Honey Nut Cheerios where it's at.
So we've gone from sports to hair to cereal.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about what we're...
We're talking about the news.
Let's talk about the news. So that's actually our entire topic today. By the way, you've figured it's I'm Father Joseph, and here's Paul and Diane.
Yep. Well, it's not a proper Catholic podcast until you have 30 minutes of banter before it actually starts.
I do not listen
Fact.
to banter. I fast forward.
I fast forward too, however, yeah.
I like the Poco a Poco banter
Sometimes.
with the CFR guys.
Sometimes.
I don't think anyone should be listening to any podcast other than Restless. And
And
let me be
Tangent, and let me be frank, and Joe and Joe.
maybe not even the tangent. I don't know. Father Sam's not
my
cool.
opinion though, Godsplaining has the best. Definitely.
I like them all.
It's the perfect amount. They're hilarious.
They're good.
Personalities are.
All right, so let's
Top
talk
notch.
about Catholic podcasts for the next 20 minutes.
We have gone on so many tangents right now, and
Right. It's almost like a show on
We should do
Very
a show on our favorite Catholic podcast.
That's true.
That's
We should
including our own.
We should
We
also
did it.
have Father Sam and Matt can return to being part of this.
right. Matt was part of this,
And then
this
have
radio
Father
show.
Sam and we'll do a mashup.
That'd be.
We'll do a
that'd be
Tangent
nice.
meets Restless.
Whoa.
How's that?
Who's gonna win? The
excellent.
Jets and the what's the other team?
The what? The Jets?
West Side Story.
Oh,
Jets.
Sharks.
Jets and the Sharks. That's
Am I
it.
right? I think it's-
yeah. I think
yeah.
it's the Sharks.
I thought we were talking about the Jets, like the football team.
That's what I thought too. And I'm
It
like,
has all come
well,
full circle.
We,
Right.
we are not the Jets.
Why we lose everything too?
no.
Ooh, sorry, Aaron Rodgers.
They actually won that game, but they lost. In reality.
Yeah,
That was really sad.
Pyrrhic victory, as they call it. Let's talk history. No,
Should we talk about the news?
let's talk about the news.
Let's talk about the news.
Yeah, so this topic was, I don't know about you guys, but the news seems pretty depressing every day, pretty much. But we as Christians, the word gospel means,
Good news.
Good news.
yeah, good means good news.
Evangelium.
Evangelion, right? Which I was reading today from Bishop Barron, by the way, that so this coming what
He has a great podcast. Keep going.
Word on Fire. Yeah, I recommend that one too. But I was reading from him, like, the great cry of the early Roman Empire was Christos Kurios, right? Christ is Lord, Jesus is Lord. But that was actually pretty seditious, pretty treasonous, because the only person that was Kurios was Caesar, Kaiser Kurios. And it was customary for after a Roman emperor had won a battle for these couriers to go throughout the towns claiming, we have Evangelion, we have good news, that Caesar is victorious, Caesar is Lord. And so that's really where the Gospels got their name of good news, is that it came from when you have a victorious Caesar, a victorious Lord, someone would cry out, there is good news. He won the battle. Which I think is kind of an interesting connection to the fact that we call this good news, but so much of our news is really pretty negative, right? So, do you personally, as young adults, pay attention to the news?
As much as I have to.
What does that mean? Do you read newspapers or?
Well, he invests in companies.
Yeah,
So
I think I have to keep a base level of knowledge of what's going on in the world. So my main source of news is two news. Well, I have my industry newsletters I get every day, but there's one newsletter in particular that I get, which is more normal news. It's kind of across all spectrums, from politics to business to sports, whatever's. It's like the 10 biggest.
Whatever's
things.
trending. Okay.
The 10 biggest things that you should know about this morning.
And
And then there's an update in the afternoon.
what
Well,
news
what
source
news
is that?
source
Yeah, what's
could
it
you
called?
share?
Axios.
Is that free?
Yeah, it's not.
Oh,
It's
free.
not the. It was started by a guy who left Politico to do something a little bit less biased,
Oh, okay.
and so they're. I would say they're probably center left, but they're pretty good. I mean, I read it.
Okay.
And I'm not center left.
No, you're pretty
So-
center right
Yeah, or farther to the right. But anyway,
or alt right.
no, not all right. No. But it's good, and so that gives me just enough, and then I get a couple of industry ones. Like for example, Axios Pro Rata is the one that is for my industry is most useful, and a couple other ones from other similar sites. But that's pretty much all I need for the day.
Okay.
And I still listen to one political. I used to listen to a lot more, but I listen to one 45-minute podcast every day, which is political, mostly political,
Okay.
and that's it, basically.
Well, that's pretty good to keep it to just that.
I think. I'm trying to think. I guess I'll go to like Wall Street Journal or whatever occasionally, but
Yeah.
it's actually rare.
Okay. What about you, Diane?
If I am keeping up with the news, because I go through kind of periods where I don't do that as much, I read the Wall Street Journal. So that's kind of, I mean, it's a finance sort of based.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of just like, and it's mostly focused on like economy, finance, real estate.
Sure.
I don't really have an interest in politics actually. And I find myself getting really annoyed. Number one, like when I turn on, for example, Fox News, right? I mean, it's and whatever news source that you do, but it's like the same story. Like if you were to have that on all day, so I don't really watch TV at all, but it's like the same news story repeated, and all of the bickering and the name calling and the slander and everything. It's just really disheartening to me. So yeah, I don't know. I just tend to focus on more the markets, finance, accounting stuff. Honestly, things I need for my day to day. But I don't get sort of wrapped up. I think some people that I know, and I understand that everyone has their passions and their like, whatever things that they're drawn to. So I'm not trying to put anyone down, but I find that, a lot of people get superheated about politics and like, talking about what this person did and what this person should be doing and isn't doing and all that stuff. And to me, like the way that I think about it, and I don't know, maybe I should be informed and maybe I should care more, but I don't right now. And like, to me, it's like, it's a waste of energy because there are like the things that people complain about for the most part, you can't really change, right? So
Right.
At the end of the day, like you don't have control over it, and you're getting heated about something that is really not in your hands, right? To the detriment of not focusing on things that you can actually control in your life. So,
Right.
And I just see it as I'm so busy with all of the sort of young adult ministry that I do with my work, teaching RCIA, all this stuff. And it's like, am I going to invest my energy in that? Or am I going to invest my energy in this news cycle that's just going to get me upset and I can't do anything about it? And at the end of the day, I have nothing to show for any of the time that I've spent there. So I'd rather spend it on ministry at Mass in my own life, improving like how can I, become a better disciple of Christ and, spending time with my family and my friends and all that stuff. So
Sure.
yeah, that's kind of my perspective.
That's a great point. I think a lot of the news cycle really works on outrage, and that's what keeps people coming back over and over again.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's, whatever storyline, right? Anything that draws people's attention and kind of feeds on emotion. But a lot of that I find it's very, it's the slander, the sort of accusations. It's very contrary to the gospel message, kind of living it out, whether or not it's true. It's just the way that it's kind of done. So I stay away from it.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Politics is almost like sports, though.
For some people, I think it is.
Yeah.
Maybe
I'm probably a little bit in that category.
Really?
It's interesting. It's very important. So you have to. So that's why it's one 45-minute show a day, right? If I actually listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not denying that. I think
Yeah.
I do need to get better in terms of like being informed, but for me there is a balance and there is that,
One of the things that I realized. So I did the full Exodus 90 program. Well, to my best of my ability, because it's like terrible, hard, and very imperfect about it. But anyway, one of the things I did do and I kept was I used to have like Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg and Fox News alerts on my phone. And any time and Trump would say anything or Biden would say anything, you get an alert. Or sometimes it would be important things like the Federal Reserve increasing interest rates, which actually does impact my work. But
Sure.
most of the time it was stuff I didn't need to know at that point. So I turned those off and I never put them back on. on both phones. I do have 2 phones, and I really don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
And when somebody, I remember I was in work on Monday, and it was like, "Did you hear that Jimmy Buffett died?" I was like, "No," and like, "You didn't get an alert?" I said, "No." I'm like, "Well, that's sad. You know, cheeseburger in paradise, Margaritaville. I
Right.
guess it's fine." But I don't know. I didn't need to know that. I found out eventually, but like, I didn't need to know that.
No,
the minute
yeah.
it happened.
And in our 24/7 news cycle, like, I mean, they're just always latching onto the newest thing. And
Right.
so if you don't know it within the hour.
I think I had turned off Fox News way before. I think I was, even when I started Exodus, I think I was just down to Wall Street Journal, which is pretty measured. Like, they don't buzz you every hour. It's like only like maybe twice a day you'll get a buzz. But even that was too much, and I don't miss it.
Yeah.
So I am slow on, but it does actually mean that I am slow on things.
But that's actually okay, isn't it?
It's fine, yeah.
I mean, I think you learn what you need to
Right.
know.
And I know like there's a cadence to things. So I know that like the Federal Reserve will be releasing their numbers like the next day at a certain time, and then I'll go on Wall Street Journal at that time and see, and it's like, oh, they did increase by a quarter point. Okay, fine.
Sure.
And move on with my day. And that
Exactly.
keeps me up to date and whatever. But
Yeah. So do you find that when you read bad news, like all the scandal mongering and this and that, does it impact your mood personally?
not at all.
Yeah, I agree with Paul. No.
I think it's probably a bad thing though. Like it should.
It's kind of made us numb.
Yeah. 100%.
I think it's maybe more jaded.
Yeah. Well, I say this about news, right? Of course it's going to be negative because I remember I just thought about, I don't know why I just thought about this, maybe because it's coming up to the anniversary, but my dad had open heart surgery in 2014, January 2014. And his was fine. And that surgeon, amazing cardiac surgeon in Hartford, did 4 open heart surgeries that day in a row, and all of them were fine. Like no issues.
Wow.
And it was just that was just his normal day.
It's a normal day.
Right? That's a miracle. That's good news.
Yeah.
But he does that every day or
Yeah, that's
twice
true.
a week or whatever it is. Like he's doing that all the time. But if he were to mess one up
Yeah.
and somebody were to actually die,
He'd be in
you may hear about that.
front page news. Yeah.
Well,
maybe,
I mean,
but
it happens
at least
frequently,
get
but
sued.
it happens with a degree of frequency. But like you would hear about that though.
Sure.
Right, but you wouldn't hear about the 4 he did on whatever day it was. I think it was February, actually, 2014, where he did 4 in a row and they were all fine.
So why is that? Why are we so drawn to bad news? And I face that a lot when, teaching young people, because I want to tell them about the good news of Jesus Christ. And they're always like, let's talk about the devil. And I'm like, dude, why are we talking about like the exorcisms? I mean, yeah, they're cool, I guess, but like also a man rose from the dead and that's cool.
Yeah.
But somehow that kind of lost its impact. Why is it we're so drawn to bad news?
Like I said, I think because it's different. Because the day-to-day is the data, like the good things that happen on the day-to-day are actually not unique, which is a good thing.
That's a good thing.
We can be thankful for that.
Yeah.
And so, but the abnormalities are generally negative. And when people are abnormally good, you do sometimes hear about it.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and I think we do have to have a focus on the good. And I think actually one of the things we've lost in the society is that there is a gratitude for the day-to-day, the things that you can, like being thankful for your life, for the food you have and all of that. Like those are all good things.
Yeah.
And we could be thankful for that. And that helps us avoid getting into the downward spiral of the negative news cycle, which is going to be negative because
Sells papers.
yeah, but it's also because it's the abnormalities.
Yeah. But it's interesting though. If you ever go back and read newspapers from the 1920s or 30s, they'll have like articles about, well, John Smith hosted a party the other weekend and it was great and 25 people attended and there were lemon squares served by all. And
Yeah.
you're like, that was news back then?
Well, we have that to some extent with social media, but it's had the complete opposite reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we're too involved in what people ordered for dinner last night.
Yeah, I don't take pictures of my food.
You don't?
Well, I have, but only at very special restaurants.
Oh, but you make food.
I
Do
do.
you ever
And I
take
don't take
pictures
pictures
of
of that.
No, you're not. Oh.
No,
You should make a portfolio.
I don't have any pictures.
But start taking them, because then someday, when you're like, hey, honey, will you marry me? She's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. What can you make? You're like, look, I make a good pasta carbonara. She's like,
I actually
"Yes,
do.
I will
My
marry you."
spaghetti carbonara is amazing.
Can I try some?
Someday.
Paul is a good cook.
Someday. That was a very non-committal invitation.
I don't know. I'll invite you. Not on a Friday though. It has meat.
It does have.
And I don't eat meat on Fridays.
Good for you.
Generally,
Good for you.
I get about 40 out of 52,
Okay.
including Lent.
Oh, you mess up in Lent?
No,
Oh, okay.
40 out of 52.
All right.
He's 100% record during Lent.
Oh, no, that's not true. Did I ever tell that story? Okay, one
No.
tangent is this is the episode.
This is the episode.
Is I was interviewing in Texas on a Friday, and they didn't ask me what I wanted for lunch. They just brought me a Chick-fil-A sandwich on a Friday during lunch.
Like from a Christian store.
Any case, well, they're Protestant. They eat meat on Friday.
I know.
And so I was starving and I ate it. And I actually brought it to confession. And one of the priests at St. John was like, well, were you grateful for it? I said, yes. He says, well, then you didn't do anything wrong. I was like, okay. Fine.
I still say your
Maybe I
soul's
should
in
have
jeopardy,
fasted.
But yeah, you should. Yeah, I say your soul is in jeopardy from that chicken sandwich. But that's okay.
I went to confession the next day, I think.
You felt guilty,
Good.
right?
I did.
So in this, let's go back to our original topic.
All right.
Yeah, how
The
did you
news.
get on the topic of Chick-fil-A?
Because I'm tired.
I don't know. So, when we're talking about the bad news that's so prevalent in our culture, I mean, I think the only solution is the good news. So how can we make the good news as exciting or interesting or, applicable to people's lives as the bad news that they see every day? I mean, the good news is Christ, and he's the solution to all the messiness that's on the front page of the newspaper.
I think first we have to believe it ourselves. We have to believe in the salvation of our souls. Because then that shields us a bit from the rest of the mess. Because there's so much hope in that. But hope isn't a strategy, right?
Well, but it might be.
But it's part of it, I would say.
Because I think a lot of people look at the news and are hopeless.
Yeah,
So-
and so to that point, and maybe, but also we have, I think, given we're a sacramental church too, and so that's such good news. I mean, I think about it. It's like, yes, like Protestants can be saved. I mean, God can save anyone He wants, and maybe Protestants are saved too potentially. But we can partake in the divine life and the graces that are presented through the sacraments. And so I think as we've moved away from the sacraments over time, either because people are leaving the church or because the people in the church aren't taking advantage of the sacraments, then you become hopeless. You're not participating in the divine on earth as much as you can.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you're going to be hopeless. Of course, you're going to fall into despair. And maybe it's true that if you're living a sacramental life, then when you read all the bad stuff in the news, it doesn't impact you as much because you have so much hope and you know in God's mercy, and you're trying to tap into that as much as possible or something like that. By the grace of God, of course.
Yeah, I think just to build on that concept of hope, Spe Salve, this is a quote.
That was Pope Benedict's encyclical for those who...
Yep. The one who has hope lives differently. The one who has hope has been granted the gift of a new life. So, I think Paul's point about kind of believing in our salvation, but also trying to develop and ask for the grace to, honestly, the gift of wisdom, right? To have that eternal perspective, to see all of the events in light of eternity. And I think that, God wants us to live more joyfully and lovingly in the here and now, in his divine life through, Paul's point of the sacraments in the church, right? So kind of, I think we have to maybe work on our understanding of what is true freedom and where does happiness and joy come from, because freedom is not the right to do whatever I want. That's not what's ultimately going to bring people the fulfillment that they're seeking, right? We're made for God, and we're made for living our life in union with Him. And so freedom comes in sort of rightly ordering our desires, but that involves a denial of self. And I think that that's very challenging in this world of like constant and instant gratification, and where it's very easy to consume or to get distracted or to seek, personal pleasure.
I think a desire that we never talk about is the constant desire for new things. Mm-hmm. And that's why so many people are hungry for the news cycle, because it's just, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And the reality is life is pretty mundane, like your everyday life. You get up, go to work, pray every day. Sometimes you feel God, sometimes you don't, And it can be a distraction. So to try to abandon our daily duties, to say, I just want to focus on that which is new, even if that which is new is often bad, And I just think about the book of Ecclesiastes. They talk about how there's nothing new under the sun. People say, "Oh, look, it's new," but it's been done before. But people are always striving after that new thing. And Ecclesiastes, although the author doesn't have any hope for eternal life, he does say at the end of the day, the only thing that really satisfies is, enjoy your work, enjoy the fruits of your labor, and fear God. And that's kind of it. And that's an important thing I think to remember, because even of course when he was writing thousands of years ago, if they got a news bulletin once a week, that would be a lot. Right. And then it came to daily newspapers, and then twice a day, and now it's it's ubiquitous. So even then, hundreds of years ago, they found a joy, a very subtle joy, not as exciting as like the flashy news, the outrage, the constant chatter of talking heads, that this person did that, this person died. But it's kind of like a subtle joy of like, I'm fulfilling my duties, my daily duties, doing them well, and enjoying life in that.
Those are some of the most fulfilling days, is where you just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
Those are sometimes the best days, in my opinion.
I think at the end of the day, you can rest your head on the pillow well.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, and every moment can be offered. Actually, I received I'm signed up for this, what's it called, morning offering. And there was a quote this morning from an anonymous Carthusian monk. And he said, suppress interior noise. God created your soul silent and keeps it inviolate at baptism. He filled it with himself, nothing other than himself. It is later, little by little, that the world bursts in. Noise invades, covering the soft voice of God. Since then, the racket amplifies itself. Return to your baptismal silence, my brother. Noise has 3 generations. Memories, curiosity, and worries paralyze their action. So I think, that is very pertinent to what we're talking about, because a lot of the news cycle and, wanting to follow it does stem from, curiosity. So there's healthy curiosity, but there's unhealthy curiosity.
Most is unhealthy.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like,
He killed the cat.
Yeah.
Did.
And there are some things that we should know, but there's some things that we don't need to know. And it's just filling space, filling void that we should probably be spending doing other things, attending to our duties, which can be, God has given us the opportunity to sanctify ourselves through whatever, vocation that we have, being attentive to the people who are in front of us. And
Curiosity kills the cat lick. Catholic.
Oh, ha.
Sorry, I've been waiting till I'm sorry to tell that joke.
What is your relationship with the news? I think you're fairly. You seem like you're fairly well read.
I am, but I think I struggle with that same desire for new things. And I sometimes I'll go on one news website and be like, oh, that's the same stuff as yesterday. Got to find a new website. You find a new website and okay, there's a couple new articles in here. And a lot of times it's the same stuff rehashed. I read a lot of Catholic news, of course, and for literally like the last year and a half, there's been all these articles about the synod on synodality, right?
Yeah, nothing new has happened.
And nothing new has happened, right? This is all like leading up to it, and so I'm constantly like, oh, what did this person say? What did George Weigel say about this? What did so and so say? What did Bishop Strickland say about he had his strong opinions.
And that's how I feel with politics too. That it's just like recycled content.
It is
like
totally
there is
recycled content.
There's some new stuff, but it's like, okay, maybe I didn't read the news for 2 weeks, and I feel like I'm caught up after.
Well, that's the thing is, I go away on vacation and come back, and I'm like, well, didn't miss a darn thing, and haven't checked the news in 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's one of the podcast guys, secular, he's not Catholic, his name's Dave Rubin, and he goes away every year in August. He'll take all of, I haven't listened to it in a long time, but he'll take all of August off and literally have no technology.
Refreshing.
Completely separate. And he does the news. That's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll always have one of the other pundit podcast people just go through what happened during the month. And sometimes August is always an interesting month. As it turns out. Well, one year.
It's pretty down. It's
one year was the big Afghanistan pullout disaster. Another year was when Biden chose Kamala Harris as a VP, and that's big news. Yeah, so there's some things that have actually happened. I haven't listened to it a bit because I don't think August has been particularly interesting. But it was just interesting to hear that. Actually, one of the Catholic guys does it too. Matt Fradd did it for a few years too. And it's just interesting to hear the reaction to some stuff, and to some stuff it's just so.
But that's what most of news has become, is reaction and opinion.
Yeah.
Because if you look even 50 years ago, newspapers just reported the news.
Yeah, no one read it.
It's fun. That is not true.
They did read it. They did read it,
yeah.
but in the in the advent of television, people over a long period of time stopped reading newspapers and started watching TV.
A friend, a parishioner who's a friend of mine, gave me some newspapers for when she had collected all these newspapers when Mother Teresa died back in 1997. And so a couple of weeks ago, I finally got around to sitting there and just reading it. And I, read the articles about Mother Teresa, but then she gave me the entire newspaper. And so I was like, I wonder what else was happening in 1997 at that time. And that was right around when Princess Diana had died. So there's a lot of articles about that.
Pre-impeachment, though, I think.
Of Bill Clinton? Yeah, it was definitely pre-impeachment. Yeah. But it was interesting to me, the shift even in 23, 25 years, that in 1997, they just told the news. It wasn't biased. And this was Connecticut Post. This was New York Times. This was, it's just like they reported facts. They didn't put a spin on it. There was no, you knew when you reached the opinion page because it said opinion page.
Right.
Unlike now, which is everything is opinion page.
Right. Well, I think you see it most in when somebody who I would say the main news media doesn't particularly like dies. They'll say this person died, and then they'll go through all the terrible things that person did.
Yeah.
It's just very common.
No, it's true. Not too long ago, maybe 5 years ago, a priest from our diocese passed away, and he had been falsely accused of sexual abuse and totally exonerated. But when he died, the headline in the newspaper was "Accused cleric dies."
Yeah,
and we were outraged at seeing that.
Some people, right? I'm sure people complained.
Maybe, I don't know. I wasn't that close with him. I probably should have.
Yeah.
But
I remember when Pope Benedict died.
Yeah.
And oh man, some of those newspaper articles were vile.
They were.
They'd be like, some people loved them, some people didn't like them. Let's tell you all the reasons why people didn't like Pope Benedict.
Yeah.
Yeah,
dragging out the dirt.
Oh man, it's a shame. Why? He just died. He literally just died yesterday.
Yeah, and in my opinion, one of the holiest men.
I know, he's so good. And
man.
I don't know, but that's what you expect.
Yeah. So last question here, which I think is a big question. We believe as Christians that history is not just a series of random events, but rather that God's revealing himself through human history and that he's like working towards the goal of the restoration of all things in Christ. But how can God use this current chaos, this chaos socially, politically, spiritually in our nation to bring about his purposes? It seems like God has been falling asleep for the last 60 years, leaving us to our own demise.
Maybe I'll just pose one thing and then I'll leave it there. Would be, I think that there's a focus on it now that is a problem. We didn't necessarily know that was a problem. What you just said, like all this crazy news cycle and all the negative stuff that's going on in the world and our limited attention spans and our hopelessness and all that, but there wasn't necessarily a focus on that. Now there is.
So you're saying we're being woken up to the miserable condition we're in?
Kind of, yeah. And I think that especially in the more devout Catholic community, there's a recognition of that. And that's why parents aren't letting their teenagers have smartphones. And there's no TV in the house. And there's rosary time and all these things that, I didn't grow up with. We had TV. We had all like modern stuff. But I think there's a little bit of recognition that this might be very harmful. And the only way we would have known that is if we recognized it. So maybe there's a positive that's coming out of it. And so maybe we're fixing the church a little bit first.
The darker the night gets, the more the stars shine bright and radiant.
Exactly. And so maybe we fix the church first and we go from there.
Yeah.
Because we're broken too. So might as well start somewhere, and it's a good place to start.
Very much so. Very much so.
Dang,
I got nothing to add to that.
Dan's got a thumbs up on that one. That's true, but I think as a Christian, we have to look at the world and the news through the eyes of that faith of saying, God's in control and he's going to bring good out of this, whatever mess we're in.
And we may not see it, and we have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We may not know until we die.
God looks at the long game, right? Think about those people who were taken into exile. It was 70 years, which means that some generations passed away before they were finally let out of exile. And they're probably wondering, is this forever? Is this permanent? And God's like, no, it's not. But, 70 years for God is a snap of the finger. It's not that long.
Yeah, God's timeline, throughout the Old Testament, it's often centuries. So
Right. We have to have that
we're
perspective.
Just instantaneous. We want things fast, and we want to figure them out.
But think Noah had to live for hundreds of years doing the same thing every day, except for the brief time on the boat.
Building the boat?
Building the boat was a long time.
Yeah, and then when he got off, he built a vineyard and got drunk.
Apparently, yeah.
First person in history to get drunk.
Supposedly.
What a noble
I'm
memory.
Just saying, but he lived hundreds of years.
He did.
Right, because you're closer to the creation. So people live longer. At least that's one theory.
Right, that's one theory. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's true. That's true. Well, thanks for joining us in this episode of Restless. Keep your eyes out for how God is moving, even in our current events, because we know that this is not just random events. Rather, it's leading to the goal of our repentance, the goal of our holiness and our salvation. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Restless. You can find us on Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 AM, 103.9 FM, and my cell phone number, no, I'm just kidding, is... And tune in next time to our next episode of Restless.
Hey everybody, this is producer Matt. If you liked this week's episode of Restless and want to help the show grow, please rate us, review us, and subscribe on your preferred platform. God bless.